Hello, everyone. Once again, we are live. I'm waiting to see when our guest pops into the room. And as soon as they pop in, I'm going to add them and we're going to get started. I'm also thinking of leaving about 5 minutes to. We work on Caribbean time for most people. And so giving about 5 minutes for everyone to kind of log in and join the chat so that this conversation could get started. So let's just wait a few minutes and we'll see when exactly our guest joins in. There we go.
Hi.
Oh my. Hello, pretty lady. Look at you.
Hi, sister friend.
Oh man, it's been way too long.
I miss you.
Way too long. I miss you too. COVID is not helping us in the slightest to reconnect.
First.
I just said I'm gonna give about like 5-10 minutes.
Yeah.
Caribbean people now, so
Yeah.
you have to allow them to come in the room.
Yeah.
How are you though?
Girl, I'm good. The weather is getting really nice.
Mm-hmm.
Enjoying that. How about you?
Hey, we're alive, and just for that, I am grateful, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Just that. I don't need anything more than that, but just to be alive and well. So for those of you, I see one person has joined us thus far. We're going to give about 5 to 10 minutes for people to join in, and then we're going right into it. We're not...
All right, girl.
We're going to be real.
Oh, kind of new to this, but this should be exciting. I see people do lives all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering, how do they mute, like on Zoom? Like if something very embarrassing happens in the background, like what do you do? But I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, there's a little button. I'm also new to at least Instagram Live. And so I'm learning as well. We're learning together. But really, it's all about just having open and honest conversations. I think COVID has definitely shown a lot of people that they're necessary and they're needed. These conversations should be had. We need to stop playing, right? So the technology bit we'll learn as we go. But definitely it's going to be an open and honest conversation that we have today. Like I said, for new people joining us, we're just going to wait 5-10 minutes for people to come into the live and join us, and then we're going to get started. If anybody comes late, that's fine. They can always look at the live after the fact. So we don't want to keep grown folk wait. You know what I mean? Yes. You look really nice, by the way.
Thank you, love. You too. You, and I'm so proud of you. I just want to say, man, this is such an honor because, you're my baby sis. And everything that you've been doing, and of course this book, it's just so I'm almost starstruck by you now.
You're too funny. You're too funny. I mean, we've had these conversations.
I know.
Right? Just in our usual day to day, we've had these kind of conversations, but I guess now it's kind of peeling back and letting people come in and see how honest we can be sometimes, which is not always what people want to hear, but it's very necessary, very needed. So yeah, I'm glad to have you on. You were I was like, who's next? Mary's next.
Okay, what am I gonna talk about? Are we gonna bond over all of our very intense past relationships? What are we gonna bring up? So I'm excited. I see you have your tea ready, so
I got this cup as a birthday gift.
Oh, that's
Yeah, it's really cute. Positivity, from one of my good friends, Princess. And yeah, so I told her that I would make sure to slip it in, give her some promo. Oh boy, yeah. But the conversations definitely, you know, they will go as you go, as open as you're willing to be. I'm willing to roll with. Definitely, I think we haven't experienced anything that other people haven't.
That's true. I think we have a normal-ish relationship life. And
Yeah.
like this is stuff everybody would probably have like a very similar story to, or like our past relationship. I assume when we get into it, people would be like, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Like,
Yeah, that's familiar. Definitely, that sounds familiar. You know what I mean? So that's why I think that, you know, it's really just about kind of uncovering things that a lot of people sometimes feel embarrassed about talking about. The fact that, oh my gosh, I had a relationship that I'm not too proud of. And they're embarrassed to even think about that. So the fact that we're able to openly talk about it and also talk about how we've grown since then, I think it's really encouraging to a lot of people, to let them know if they are currently in such a relationship, to just do some evaluation.
That's true. Yeah, because I think soul searching and growth and like bringing out things that you don't necessarily want to face, like your demons and things that are really hard to unpack. And I'm sure you have met people, you know, in your line of work that you had to really sort of make them look in the mirror, and that's a very hard thing to do.
It's very, very difficult.
Yeah.
You know, in my profession, it's still, yes, it's your profession, but you could still only open up a person that wants to be open, right? That wants to do the work. So it's still about really that person being willing to open up and really look at those skeletons, and face them head on, like you were talking about.
Yeah.
Growth.
Need to grow and get out of toxic relationships. It's I feel like it's so cliche to be like, okay, but we're in 2021 now, so you know it's time to get out of these toxic relationships. But it's time, you know, you don't have to stay in something you don't want to stay in.
Yeah.
But another thing I guess we'll get into, people being in toxic relationships and not even realizing that they're in. And
Jadelle just said, or knowing what to look for. And that's so correct, right? We're going to talk about some of that as well. We're not going to talk every single thing relationships today, but we're going to talk a good bit, and just have an open dialogue as well. And then, you know, I'm most likely going to have you on another time. I'm just dropping that in advance, you know.
Have me anytime, you know.
We'll probably have you on again. Probably talking about something else as well. But definitely today we're just opening the door on relationships. So I think we can kind of get started, I think, because you know, it's, we don't want to wait too long. Like I said, grown folk have grown things to do, and whoever comes in late can definitely just watch it back. So we definitely want to get started. So I just want to thank all of you that are tuning in. This is the second episode of The Couch Is Yours with me, Davriel Valley. I am a nationally certified counselor, a clinical traumatologist, a relationship expert, and now an author. And this show is really just about having open, honest conversations about topics that I see day to day with my clients. But now I want to bring them to you. I want to talk about it with you, the audience, give you almost like a sneak peek of what it's like to be in a therapy session, because a lot of people still, unfortunately, are afraid of going to therapy. And so to break that stigma, we want to have these discussions, open, honest, with different guests. I'm going to be bringing on, last week we had Atia Douglas, which she was amazing.
Yeah.
We got a lot of great feedback. And today we are having my good friend, Mary Ellen Duncan. Oh my goodness, y'all. Like, y'all don't even know how excited I am to just have Mary on the show with us. Mary is a marketing coordinator and podcast host at Pace Technical. And I'm not sure, Mary, do you want to say how we met?
Girl,
do you remember?
about this all week. I'm trying to remember the year, the time. Okay, basically, we met back in our uni days at SGU, you know.
Yeah, at St. George's University. For those of you that don't know what SGU is, a beautiful, beautiful, expensive undergraduate university in the beautiful island of Grenada.
And you came to school there, and we were both studying, and I think we shared a few courses. I can't remember exactly what the courses were now. Like, I was busting my brain trying to remember what was the class we had together, but all I remember was we had shared assignments or something. And I've ended up working in groups, and then we got talking and realized that we like Pretty Little Liars, and like
that's now become one of those embarrassing things that I don't talk about.
But then, you know, we got talking, and, you know, people might look at us and be like, oh, they're very two different girls. But I think fundamentally, our similarities, our empathy, our love for family, our love for friends, like, really bonded us and became close. And I think you're pretty much one of my very close friends from that period in my life. So very grateful to have met you then. And I think that was a very also weird time where you're off and you're in relationships and you're not necessarily sure where you're going to end up, but you meet people along the way. And I think, thank goodness I met you, because remember, you know, those certain times that we had that we'd be like, oh crap, yeah, this isn't.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
Bulbs go off in our brain about relationships, and we're like, yeah, okay, there's maybe something we want to change here. Maybe we don't want to be with this person anymore. And I think we bonded a lot about boys and shows mostly.
Okay. Real talk. But definitely, like you were talking about, you know, I really believe that some people come into your life for a reason at certain times. And you as well are one of like my closest friends that remain since that undergraduate experience, which was so fundamental in, you know, my character, my development. And it's definitely hard to not think of you in that time because of what you're saying in terms of we helped each other really make some kind of big decisions that was kind of difficult to make on your own, and that goes to the importance of friendship.
And thank goodness each other to kind of make that realization too, because sometimes some people need a push, and I think you were my push into the right direction, because other friends could push you and oh Lord, they could push you down. And you don't want to end up, but thank goodness. Oh, Mace, my poor baby, Justin's home. But yeah, thank goodness that we met each other, and it was an upward climb. It was just positivity. It wasn't anything negative, and I think we've both grown from meeting each other.
Definitely. Hey, code and quote to all of those listening. Friendship is important. Who you surround yourself with, it does matter. You could be an amazing person, but if you surround yourself with only people who bring you down, who make you feel like you're not good enough, you won't make the steps that you need to reach your full potential. And so it's very important to be very selective, because unlike family, right, we can't necessarily choose our family, right? We're born into that, and you're stuck with them no matter, you know, how toxic they may or may not be. But friendships, that's honorary family. That's family you choose. And so be very selective on who you let in your life.
Yes.
That's a quote of the day, people. Quote of the day. So
now on.
right? I think it took some time in terms of learning learning that the importance of friendship. I think it took time to recognize that you shouldn't just be friends with everybody who's kind of nice to you. In the Caribbean, we have this saying that how does it go? All skin teeth is not laugh, or something like that.
Heard that one before.
If somebody knows the correct way to say it, please tell me. My Trini badge will be revoked. I apologize, but in essence, the story is everybody that smiles with you and laughs with you isn't necessarily your friend. But I think experience teaches you that over time. So definitely. So Mary Ellen is a Caribbean girl herself. Born and raised in all skin is not grin. Okay, see, I don't know it that way. I know like all skin teeth. Like, okay, I don't know, but okay, all skin is not grin. That sounds a little different to me. But thanks for helping me out. Oh, okay, right, good. Okay, so all skin teeth is not grin. All right, that sounds more accurate. My Caribbean people helping me out. Yeah, so Mary Ellen is also a Caribbean girl. She was born and raised in beautiful, like I said, you cannot even describe. If you've never seen the island of Grenada,
you're missing out. Like
you don't know paradise, right? And so to be born in such a beautiful island, my goodness, they have such beautiful, unique people there. I always boast on Grenada as if I live there. I do believe yes.
Now, and we accept you as Grenadian and nothing else. I mean, it's fine. We know you were born in Trinidad. An honor, at least.
Definitely, Grenadian people are really so sincere. At least all of them that I've come across. They're beautiful people. It's a beautiful place. And so that was, I think, the best place I could have gone for my undergraduate degree. Like I was saying, for those who may not know, they have an American offshore university there. I'm not sure if it's still American owned, but at the time it was an American university, predominantly a medical school. Still great ratings, high ratings. But we went there for social sciences, of course, because I was not about that medical life. And yeah, like that is where we met. But Mary, growing up in Grenada, you know, as a young woman, a young girl, take us back to childhood in terms of just what would you say influenced you on what your ideal concept of relationships should look like?
Yeah, I mean, I had to go down memory road again with that because, man, I guess my parents, like I grew up in a very tall West Indian nuclear family that I guess evolved into this extended family like most of us. You know, we have different family members living with us. But yes, it was mom and dad, and I saw that as like the very first, I guess, romantic relationship.
Right.
And that would have influenced how I saw, I guess, myself in the future being in a relationship. And then, of course, there's TV, there's movies, there's Disney movies, like obviously all the princesses and their Prince Charmings. I guess had some type of Barbie character or princess from Disney that we were obsessed with. There's this ideal that you should grow up, meet a man, and be a Prince Charming, and then y'all will fall in love, make a bunch of babies, and have like this happily ever after. So that's like my first, I guess, thoughts on, okay, well, this is what a relationship should be like. And then later on, like when you become like a teenager, and even in your early 20s, you know, you watch a lot of TV shows and you read books, you listen to music. And I know for us, like a lot of our perspectives and ideals came from TV shows, right? And fortunately or fortunately, there's certain themes in TV shows that
definitely,
man, could influence you and how you think about love. And I'm thinking about TVD the other day, girl, and Damon and Stefan. And
Okay, you're talking about another thing that I'm in. Okay, so honestly, this is your guilty pleasure, not mine. Because I never watched Vampire Diaries. Okay, so that's more your guilty secret. That's embarrassing to talk about now.
Let me get into it, because what I now realize about these shows, right, are all the themes that are so dominant. Verbal abuse, manipulation, racism, betrayal, thing, like all of those things are normalized.
Yes.
Absorb that and internalize that, and subconsciously or not, that becomes a part of how we create relationships, I think.
Definitely.
And little did I know that would impact how I looked for partners, attracted people, and created these sort of toxic relationships.
Yeah. You could not have said it any better, to be honest. I was glad that you spoke about your parents, right? That being the primary or the first example of a relationship for you, because that's what it would be, right? Who you live with. That's your first foundation of socialization. But then you went to Disney, right? And Mary, what you're talking about is so real for, I think, so many young women that grow up looking at a Disney kind of mold, in terms of you have to look a certain way, you have to act a certain way, and like you said, wait for Prince Charming to come and save you from whatever situation you're in, because whatever you're in is not good enough, already making you feel less than, right? And so you need that saving, and then he becomes really the end all be all, because the movie wraps as soon as the prince finds the princess, right? So it's like, oh, that's my goal, that's what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting to be rescued. And that's very, very damaging to a young woman in terms of her self-esteem and just what she thinks about herself, what she thinks she's worth, what her,
literally just about to say that. That's how you develop like your worth, your sense of, well, maybe I'm not worth as much as people think I am.
Yeah, definitely. And you question, is where I'm at good enough? Even though where you may be at is normal and healthy, you start to question if it's good enough because you're comparing it to these Hollywoodized standards. And then so you went from the step of Disney to going to, we all transitioned.
Yeah.
We all transitioned from Disney to that CW styles TV shows that really were made for girls who were born and raised on Disney, right? So girls were already told that you're not good enough looking this way, you're not good enough without a man, you're not good enough, right? Then you transition to this CW teenage kind of shows that just continue that message, but now you get to see how the relationships actually work, right? Now you get to see that the guy is supposed to talk to you in a certain way, right? He's always supposed to talk to you mean, but then he likes you, but then, so, and again, that goes back to even our culture, because we teach that if a little boy hits you, if a little boy talks mean to you, he likes you.
What?
That
okay, this is going exactly going. This is right.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So definitely Hollywood has played a huge role both on the male side and on the female side, because I think it's also unfair some of the standards that we have for men, in terms of there's the two kinds of guys that we were portrayed, right? There was the bad boy, right, kind of guy that treat you mean, but he loves you, right, and he'll change for you. And then there was the Prince Charming that was perfect and ideal. And I think that giving young girls these basically two cuts or ideals for a guy is really unfair to men, because none of them fit that. Yes, music videos as well. None of them fit that. We're all humans. We're all flawed, and so it's a trap either way. So you spoke about those two things being your three: your parents first, then Hollywood, in terms of first from a young age Disney movies, and then transitioning to more adult themed kind of shows, how they really impacted how you looked at yourself and your relationships.
Music as well, and of course there's a little something called peer pressure, when you're growing up and you're seeing like maybe some of your closest friends, jumping into relationships, getting boyfriends, getting girlfriends, and you're feeling this sense of, okay, well, maybe I'm left out, maybe I should be dating people too.
Something's wrong with me if I'm not.
And that's definitely a huge factor, I think, for a lot of people, not necessarily for me. I think it was really the TV. With my parents, I think it's only now I've realized how much their relationship have influenced my current relationship. So that's a very odd thing, I know. But it's only now I'm subconsciously realizing, okay, well, yeah, this is actually how you're supposed to be treated.
Right.
This is how they did things, and you don't really think about it because they're like your parents, and as a kid that's gross.
Yeah, you want to be as far away from the image of your parents as a child as possible.
But it's really, now I could look back and see good things from their relationship, things that they built together that I'm like, okay, yeah, this made sense. This is probably why they've been married for so long.
We'll definitely, get back to some of those similarities that you see in your current relationship. But I wanted to ask you, what were some of your expectations? So we know that this was what you were consuming, right? And so I think it's important for us to be aware that what you consume, what you internalize, it's you have to filter it. Right now we are at the age of social media, and that is also the same thing. Right now everybody is a celebrity, and so you're looking at people who you're thinking are just like you, but again, social media only shows you what they want you to see, right? And so again, you're stuck in this place of, I'm not good enough, these are how my relationship goals are supposed to look like, and so it's kind of the same thing as those TV shows were doing. So we still have to check ourselves, but what did that sort of media, how did it impact your expectations actually going into a relationship? And then when you got into a relationship, did the reality meet those expectations?
I mean, my first relationships, I was way too young, I think, to even have expectations. It took me a long time. Well, there's this saying my sister Alicia always says, you have to kiss a few frogs before you find your prince. I think generally my expectations would have been okay, you'll be loyal to me, trust you, we would laugh together, we would have things in common. I think I would have expected those things, right? But in reality, it wasn't always like that. There was a lot of things like insecurities coming up. There was definitely a lack of trust in most of them, because I think we were both very young. And you shouldn't be in these types of lockdown relationships as young people. That's just a personal opinion, but I think date and be open, and when you shut yourself down, and I'm saying shut yourself down, more like tie yourself down in a committed relationship very young, it could lead to so much wasted time, because when you're that you don't know necessarily what you want,
right,
or what you like, and then you're wasting time with people. So having those expectations, I guess, like I said, like you can't really have proper expectations because you're young and you kind of don't know yourself and you don't know
Right.
what you like. So it takes time to just date and learn, right? About yourself, about what you like, what you want from a partner.
Mm-hmm.
And it's good because you still learn from mistakes, right? Like
Of course.
every experience, every bad relationship, hopefully what I hope people go through is that they learn, they recognize, okay, maybe what went wrong. These are things I shouldn't repeat over and over again because I didn't like it, you know?
Right. Yeah, definitely. I think you raised a huge point there in terms of how young that people get into relationships.
Yeah.
Times have changed. I think in a few generations back, people were more mature at a younger age because they had to be quite honest. The times that they were living in, they were forced to grow up really, really young.
Yeah.
And so they would have entered relationships and be serious. They were making a huge commitment. Now, because times have changed, I definitely do feel that enjoy your singleness.
Yeah.
And our culture is one of, what? You're still X age and you're single? Like, what? Something wrong with you? But you have to know who you are.
You have to. And it's unfortunate in our culture, you're pressured by family, by your friends, by your aunties, your uncles, all of these people all the time. Like, when you get married, when are you going to have babies? When are you, like, do this, do that? And that could definitely impact relationships that you form and stay in just because, things that are outside of what you care about.
Definitely.
People influencing and infiltrating, how you think life should be and relationships should be. And we've definitely all been there to some extent at some point, I'm sure.
Definitely. I think that your singleness is the foundation for healthy marriages.
Yeah, and self-growth. Like, being single is not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing.
It's such a freeing time and find out what you like. And sometimes, like, I remember I took maybe 2 years of just being single on purpose to not be in a relationship and kind of get to know myself. And it was very liberating. Honestly, there's nothing against single people. If that is what you choose to do for the rest of your life, people shouldn't peer pressure you and be like, oh, you need a man or you need a woman or you need somebody, because that's not the case for everyone, right? Sometimes you find that being alone or not being in a relationship satisfies them, and that's completely okay.
Yeah, I definitely believe that people should have the liberty to enter relationships when they feel ready to do so, and not feel pressured into it that, well, Mother Nature's clock is ticking, or my mom or dad keeps asking me when they're getting grandkids. Because you're right, then you feel pressured and you end up making some not so healthy decisions, and at the end of it, you're the one having to be in the relationship with this person. You're the one stuck with it. So enjoy your singleness period, discover things about yourself, discover, ground yourself in whatever, in your faith, right? Ground yourself in your values, ground yourself in really knowing who you are, and then let that be the foundation that you then join with someone else who has done the same thing. Right? When you look at singleness as something to run away from, you run into the wrong kind of relationships.
Yep.
That's just what it is, right?
It is.
So, I wanted to talk to you about as well, we keep talking about toxic relationships, and that's a fairly new term, toxic relationships, right? But essentially it just means a relationship that is unhealthy, or it could even stem into somewhat abusive in terms of how bad it really is. And that could be emotional abuse, that could be verbal abuse, mental abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse. So toxic is a broad term, But I really wanted to talk to you just in terms of your experience. In your opinion, what made your relationship or relationships toxic?
It's kind of like you said, like toxic is broad, and it's definitely something that's not good for you. Something is toxic, it's nothing positive. It's the opposite. And toxic to me, I think, meant kind of like what I was talking about earlier, where you're feeling insecure all the time, happy all the time. Toxic in my past relationships meant that I might have distanced other friends.
Right.
Somebody completely different from who I was by being with people. And you find like little bits of yourself just sort of evaporating. You know that scene in Endgame where Thanos like snaps his finger, just like evaporating. So like you slowly feel yourself just like fading away.
Right.
And yeah, I was definitely in those kind of sunken places with these people. And I always felt like I couldn't trust them. I couldn't sleep at night because I wasn't sure what you're doing. I was so insecure about maybe their social media and always thinking, okay, well, they're texting other people, talking to other people, and never a sense of security around them. They just didn't make me feel good. But for some reason, like I kept attracting and staying in those types of relationships. Maybe because temporarily we would have good times, like you'd obviously have good times with persons, they'd make you laugh, you'd have good experiences with them. Maybe they met your whole family and got to know all your friends, so you feel like you've invested time and also, so you can
talk about that time. Time is a dangerous thing. I hear a lot of my clients talking about the time that they've invested, whether it be in an intimate relationship or a friendship. And time does not necessarily equate to quality.
But it does make you feel guilty sometimes. If you've 2, 3, 4 years in a relationship and you feel like, okay, well, if I call this quits, like I've lost all this time and everything I've invested into this person. And obviously, like you've exposed them to your family, again, your friends, they've been in your life for so long, kind of what you're used to, right? Yeah. But again, other red flags would be things like the fighting, constant fighting. Every little thing is an argument, right? Smallest things. And yeah, like verbal abuse is a huge one. And I think some people don't even know what it is because it's so normalized. But
very subtle.
People can be very disrespectful, and sometimes you grow accustomed to that, or that could be something you grew up with and not know the difference, right? Like that's been your example of a toxic relationship, and you just think that was normal, so then you accept that sort of treatment in relationships, not really thinking twice about it.
Definitely. I think that's a huge point in terms of if you're born into a family where verbal abuse or any kind of abuse is the norm, quite difficult unless you have an outside example of what healthy is to kind of see that healthy even exists. But definitely, I think that's where sometimes it takes a lot of work, but that's where breaking those transgenerational traumas come in terms of, recognizing I do not want this for me. I want different. I may not exactly know what different is, but I can investigate that. I can ask more questions outside of my immediate circle, which may not be healthy. I could find out what does different look like. You spoke to some of the different experiences in terms of being in these quote unquote toxic relationships. And I definitely, recognize that again. And I want people to go back to what Mary was saying her foundation was, because it's good to connect the dots, right? So we started with Disney. We started with all of these Hollywoodized relationships that were displayed as examples. And then you end up in relationships that almost mirror those in terms of experiencing a lot of emotional abuse, experiencing a lot of verbal abuse. And one of the key things that you said is that insecurity, feeling insecure all the time. And I think that is a huge red flag. If you are in a relationship where you never feel good enough, you have to check two things. Check yourself.
Yep.
Right? Is this something internal with me that I am experiencing? Or two, is this person projecting something onto me that I am experiencing?
Yeah.
Right? Because if it's yourself, right, you could have come through whatever family history and you are having internal insecurities that are affecting the relationship. And that means, okay, you need to work on you. But if it's two, where the person is projecting their own insecurities onto you, maybe they are not where you're at in terms of, level of education. Maybe they're not, maybe they don't like how they look, and so they talk about how you look all the time to make you feel less than. Different things like that. If you are constantly feeling insecure in a relationship, I think that is a huge red flag. Another thing you spoke on was that snap, right? In terms of the losing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And any relationship, and it doesn't matter whether it's an intimate relationship or a friendship, any relationship, right? That you lose yourself, that means run.
Definitely run.
It means run.
And sometimes it takes people a while to even notice that.
Yes.
I'm not the same person I was like before. Mm-hmm. And it could take like meeting other people or I haven't seen in a while, or people that are just like, yeah, like I ain't seen in a long time. Maybe you stop going out because of a certain or like you just don't seem like yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And then that shows, and then people eventually start to notice, and then you eventually start to notice, and you're like, yeah, I'm not the person I was. I'm definitely unhappy. This is not who I want to be. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, I'm always like a very extreme person. So in getting out of bad relationships and situations, it always happens suddenly for me. Like I always wake up one day and then have a realization that I need to just forget this or get out of a relationship or just stop whatever going wrong or bad. But for some people it happens very slowly and over time, and it's just weird that I just snap out of stuff very suddenly, and yeah, that's just been it for me.
Yeah, definitely. It takes time to recognize. Someone said it's slow, so like a virus, and that's so true. It takes time to recognize because it's subtle, right? I think physical abuse is a lot easier for people to recognize because you are left with a mark, right? This is evident that. And even that is so difficult to get out of. But for you to reach physical abuse, the emotional abuse, the verbal abuse, that's there, right? That has been there. But it's so hard to pinpoint.
Yeah.
Did she just say what I think she said? Did she just call me that? Nah, I know she had a hard time growing up. And you start making all of these excuses to kind of defend why a person spoke to you in the way they did, or you told them, this is a boundary for me. I don't appreciate this boundary being crossed, and they cross it anyway. And we overlook it because, again, we're so caught up in the emotion of it all, right? And so that takes me to this point of the one, right? So I titled this talking about toxic relationships and finding the one, because I definitely, and some people, when they saw that, they were like, the one, why the one, right? But I don't know if they really knew how I was going to talk about it, because the reason I put the one is because, again, Disney, Hollywood, everything programs you to think that there is this person, a magical person that is going to come and fix all of your problems, all of your issues. they're going to, right, just fill you, right, save you, and that's both ways, right, male and female, and make you feel whole. And so I wanted to kind of talk about that, because that expectation can be very damaging on both parties' ends, because of the fact that one party may have such high expectations that this person is going to come in and save them, and the other party, can you imagine the pressure, like, oh my goodness, I have to be your everything, like everything. And a lot of us try to be that everything, and that is how we lose ourselves, because all of a sudden we like this sport that we never used to like, we knew nothing about, but because they like it, we like it, right? And you begin to lose yourself in almost becoming a relationship chameleon. You change and you morph to whoever you are with, and then you wake up one day and you're like, who am I really?
Yeah.
Who am I? I don't even know who I am anymore, because I've morphed so many times into whichever partner needed me, however they needed me to be, that I don't know who I am anymore. I've disappeared. And so it's very, very difficult to come out of a relationship like that. You said it happens, you kind of wake up suddenly and you recognize, I need to cut ties. But for a lot of people, it takes a really long time to come out of these kinds of relationships, because there's such a bond. And the last episode we spoke about trauma bonds, and definitely trauma bonds are so strong, and and Marie's saying destructive. They're so strong that you can't get out, right? Because you are thinking that if I leave this, what would they do without me? What would I do without them, right? It's almost unfathomable that you can live a life without this person, because you've given them so much power over you. And so definitely someone, he said, a sidekick to your partner. Yeah. You know, that whole ride or die mentality?
But it's not, you don't want to ride till you die.
Okay. Hollywood again. But again, it's a toxic concept of, you need someone that no matter what you do, no matter what I say, they're going to have my back. What if you're hurting people? What if you are not healthy? What if you're hurting them? Right? And so even that concept of ride or die is not a healthy one, but this is what we've been indoctrinated to believe is healthy, to believe is real love, right?
That's one I hadn't even thought about, because it's a phrase I use and I've never...
He brought it up. I don't know how to pronounce your name, but he brought it up with the partner thing.
Because I say this all the time with like family and friends, and even in my marriage, like, you're my ride or die, but technically that is toxic. Like, I don't want to die with you if you're going.
You're like, die by yourself, babe.
Not take you, leave me behind. But yeah, that is again another great example of just how much external factors like the media really infiltrate our minds and make us create these perceptions of, again, what positive relationships should be. Very like insightful.
You're like, oh my gosh, I did not think about that. I have to reevaluate for a bit. So you spoke about getting out of these relationships really quickly, but I still wanted to ask, because even though you woke up with that revelation, right? It took time. And so how long, how long did it take for you to process, first recognize that what I was in was even toxic, was not healthy for me, and then how long did it take for you to actually make the decision to get out of it?
Well, I could think of one example. I was in this relationship and I've already wasted many years.
Right.
I think the one thing that sort of pushed me over the edge was something someone else brought to my attention, and the person who did that made something click in my brain, like, okay, that person was like someone you didn't want to have to tell you that. And I think that was like my very hard realization, like, oh crap, it took this person to bring this to my attention for me to actually realize what was going on. And I sort of felt a sense of shame and embarrassment, and I think that sort of made me click, like, okay, gotta get out. It's at this point now where this certain person is telling me I need to, so it's bad. So
Yeah.
that's just one example.
Yeah, definitely for, a lot of women who are in domestic violence situations, it takes at least 7 tries to get out of a relationship.
Wow.
And we just said that emotional abuse is even more difficult sometimes to get out, especially when again, domestic violence cases start on emotional abuse. So don't disconnect the two.
Right.
But emotional abusive relationships or unhealthy relationships, it's so intermingled, it's so manipulative that it's so hard to recognize, is it really bad? Is it? And so it's so important for us to have that outside voice. This is where, going back to the importance of singleness, knowing your voice to be able to distinguish the voices of outside, but being able to still hear the voices of outside when you're in a relationship. Because when you pull yourself away from that, you isolate yourself. And a lot of manipulators do that. They have you isolated so that they are the end all be all, right? So their decisions, their thoughts are all what's best for you. I know what's best for you. I'm thinking of you. That friend is not good for you. Can't you see? Right? And so you get isolated in a space where it's just you and them, and that's where they want you. But having that, say that.
I said I've definitely been there where I was in a relationship where I was convinced that all I had to do in my free time was spend time with this person, and if doing that, I would feel so guilty. That'd make me feel like, okay, well, you're disowning me, you don't care about me, love me, like, why are you trying to spend other time with people when you should really be spending all of your free time with me? And I didn't even think about it at first. I always thought, he's just wanting to spend time with me, that's so sweet, yada yada yada, not knowing, okay, I've pushed all of these like main people in my life away because I'm isolating myself and time for them, almost distancing myself constantly over and over, and just spending time with this one person, right? And I almost convinced myself that that was okay. Well, I did convince myself that that was okay for a very long time, until you realize, you can't do that. You need your friends, you need your family. Females need females, like you need female relationships, you need other relationships in your life besides romantic relationships. Platonic relationships are just as important, not more important sometimes,
Definitely. And in terms of, what we were talking about earlier, in viewing that this person has to be everything for you, that is why those platonic relationships are important, because they can't be everything for you, right? So having your guy friends to still go and play football with, you need that. That's important. I'm not gonna play football with you. I'm not, right? But that's fine. That's necessary. And so you need to have friends that fill voids and places that exactly, that your partner cannot fill, because you can't force them to be everything for you. So thank you so much for sharing how you kind of recognize and got out of that, of those different kinds of relationships. But now you're in a healthy relationship.
I think so.
Dun, plot twist. And so I really want to ask you, coming out of those unhealthy relationships, first, before we get to the healthy relationships, how did you feel about yourself, right? And how did you even conceptualize relationships after coming out of those kind of relationships?
I think at the beginning, when I just started like my self-love journey and it took a while for me to build back up my self-esteem. a lot of just getting to know myself again, developing just interests and figuring out things I like. Because as we've been talking a lot about toxic relationships, you tend to like the things that other people like, so you technically don't even know, what you like to do on your downtime. Like when you're not working, when you're not in school, what do you enjoy doing? And I think I discovered the joy of baking.
I benefited from that discovery.
And just art and music, shows, and again, redeveloping and reconnecting with people and making friendships again. And I think you're definitely one of those people that would have come across me in that chapter of life when I was just, rebuilding relationships again, getting to know other people, and trying this whole platonic relationship thing. So yeah, it was definitely a weird period because, man, it was a lot of years wasted. I'm telling you, like most of my teenage years, most of my early 20s were just wasted on just dating the wrong people and focusing on the wrong things in life. And yeah.
You say the word wasted, right? And it's unfortunate that you think of it in that way, but definitely we learn so much.
Yeah, you do.
It's sad that it has to be in that way, but you learn so much even through those unfortunate relationships or situations. You learn a lot about yourself, and a lot that you didn't even recognize you could go through. You see a lot of strength when you come out on the other side of the tunnel, because you just spoke about something really important there, which was having to rebuild your self-esteem, having to rebuild who you are as a person. And I'm not sure, if people really understand how obliterated a person can feel when they are stripped of voice and stripped of self.
Yeah.
It's low. You are at ground zero.
You're at ground zero, and it's like building up your self-worth, building up your identity, building up who you think, another person would even want to love or be with.
Yeah.
But to fill those voids for yourself, like love myself, enjoy being by myself, become more confident in myself, and figure out that you don't need to be in a relationship to be whole. And I think a reason why people stay in toxic relationships is, again, because you don't feel complete. You feel like you need this person to be the end all be all and fill the void. So it's you putting all that love and energy and time that you might have invested into other people back into yourself.
Yeah.
It's huge for growth. And until you get to that point, you'd never be ready for a relationship or even attractive to somebody else. Because you'd
not a healthy person anyway.
Yeah.
You'll be attractive to somebody, right? But not a healthy person. Definitely. That period of time that you're talking about, where you're not only rebuilding self, but you're also purging self.
Yeah.
You're purging self of all of the things that you would have experienced. And it's like I said, it's a difficult process, because there are times that you would, like you said, you're trying to regain confidence. Just, how I look, how I present to people. And you may hear that person that you used to be with in your head being like, oh, that looks ugly. Yeah. Oh, you're not. And then you have to start all over again. Oh, you're stupid. Oh, you're this. And you have to eventually get to the place where you recognize, wait, that's not my voice. That voice that I'm hearing, that's not me. That's somebody else's voice. And how do I disconnect? Because that bond was so strong. Just by cutting the relationship does not immediately extract all of the tentacles that this person has indoctrinated into you. And that's why it's so sacred, the kind of people that we enter relationships with, because we are giving them such influence in our lives. And what are they pouring in? What are they pouring into?
What are they leaving behind? Because sometimes it takes years to erase all of the damage done emotionally, physically, and sometimes you can't completely do that, and it's a work in progress. And sometimes like your next relationship wouldn't necessarily be great because you're coming with baggage. You're coming with all of these things from the past, and you need to work on that before you get into something again that will make all of these things kind of bubble up to the surface and affect your new relationship, right?
Definitely. So now, like I said, you're in a healthier relationship. If you want, just tell us, because I know we're pressed for time, but just tell us in terms of what about this relationship made you recognize this is different than what I've experienced before. This is actually healthy.
Well, for one, I wasn't necessarily looking at the time.
Okay, say that again.
I wasn't looking. Like, I really...
Oh, so you didn't go hunting for it. You didn't go... Okay, all right.
Like, it's a very interesting and long story as to how we met, but, anyways, what was the question again? I'm just so...
How did you know that this person was healthy for you?
Well, a lot of the things that I felt in my past relationships, like I brought up the insecurity, the lie-in, the trust, all those things were immediately not issues. Like, I never felt insecure around my husband. Like, he's always made me feel very secure to the point where I know, like, we have this internal banter. Like, we always joke about cheating because we know it's something we'd never do. And our level of humor and the way we just communicate with each other is to the point where if you were looking at us or hearing how we communicate, you just laugh and be like, what happened to them? But definitely we built a foundation of friendship and trust.
Oh, wait, pause. Let us just put the vehicle in neutral and just sit right here. Just sit right here with what you just said.
Yeah.
First, I want to go back to you didn't go looking, right? Because
I wasn't.
Yeah. When we go looking, we often find the wrong thing. Because again, what's motivating us to look is our insecurities, right?
Yeah.
It's this feeling of loneliness that I'm desperate, I must find. Anyways, let's continue.
Yeah.
But then we built a foundation of friendship.
Yeah.
Friendship, something that our culture has tried to eliminate and eradicate out of relationships, is friendship.
Yeah, you need to be friends with whoever you're dating, whoever you plan on getting married to, whoever you want to be in any kind of long-term relationship with. Get to know them. Come on, people. Like, being friends first, there's nothing wrong with that. Why rush into something if you know eventually you want to be with this person, endgame, right? So I think we just were very patient with each other and got to know each other. I, for one, tried to block the relationship, but he was very persistent and never gave up. And it eventually turned into something romantic, but it did start off platonic, I think, or platonic-ish.
Yeah. You're like ish. In his mind, maybe not, but for me, it was. I think that what you just spoke on there was really important because, like I said, the foundation for a healthy relationship is always going to be friendship. The passion wanes, it dies down. When you have kids, you have jobs, you have responsibilities, that passion is going to sour real fast. You could always rekindle it, but the thing that's going to keep you through that time is that friendship, is knowing that this person and I have a level of communication, have a level of have my back, right? Not ride or die, right? We ain't talking ride or die, but a good healthy friendship.
Yeah.
That is what that bond is that makes a real healthy relationship really solid. So I'm really glad to hear, that was what you guys were founded on, and that's the foundation for everything else. So I know we're running out of time.
Are we?
Okay, you're fine. Okay, no problem. But I did want you to just talk about, we're in the midst of a pandemic.
Yeah.
And that's been exciting for a lot of couples. being in the midst of a pandemic. And so I wanted you to kind of speak on what your current relationship with your husband looks like. You know, you guys were somewhat newlywed, still coming into this pandemic. What does it look like to be in this relationship? How do you guys kind of navigate around each other during this time? Especially when the pandemic was at its peak. I mean, it's still going on. It's still at its peak, but you know what I mean. When it now hit.
Yeah, bro, last year was intense. I mean, job-wise, first off, I have not had a day off because I've been working from home since, we locked down. Justin, however, his company had to close down and he was home, and we had just bought a house and we were literally moved in the week before the shutdown. So we're setting up home. Every store is closed. You can't buy new furniture. We're in an empty house together, trying to nest in a awesome. And I wish we had that time back, because I think both of us really would not have gotten that time otherwise. And it was this mini blessing for us, because we just spent our days like house planning and watching stuff and cuddling. And then we had this new dog, which is and spend time with, and it was just amazing. He works generally anywhere from like 9 to 12 hours a day.
Wow.
Technically I wasn't spending a lot of time with him, but that time was the best ever, and I wish we had it back, because we're all back to work now. Well, not I'm still working from home, as you know, but he's back now. And I like spending time with my husband. I know some couples, they can't wait to like get their time apart, which we do. We have very different hobbies and interests, as you know. I'm also a weirdo, but in a different
two different kind of way that fits together.
But I just loved having that extra time to get to know him and just be home and build, and again, like work on things together, have these little projects, have these little hobbies, fix up our home. Like, we're never gonna get that back. And unfortunately, like, I've heard a lot of people say like they had the opposite experience, like they felt like their person was kind of in their space all the time, and they didn't really want to be trapped, or they felt trapped. But yeah, that was definitely not the case for us.
Yeah. Jadelle, she noted how you lit up when you spoke about your relationship with your husband. And that speaks volumes. Just that nonverbal. Just talking about this experience with him.
He does. He makes me bubbly. And I think you called it butterflies.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, butterflies, again, that's the romance, right?
Yeah.
But describe the friendship, which I think was what you spoke about in terms of how you guys made it through this pandemic. You're just relaxing with your friend.
And it doesn't have to be like any kind of high pressure thing. Like, we could be doing nothing and be happy, which is the most like intangible thing, like being with someone and not having to feel like, okay, I need to look my best, dress my best. Like, I'm just with you and I enjoy your time, and I don't have to feel like I have to put makeup on or look a certain way or talk a certain way. We could just be in each other's presence, and like, life is great.
Definitely could see the difference. For those of you who just joined us, we were talking about toxic relationships, and we spoke about kind of the foundation for a lot of those relationships stemming from childhood, in terms of, for some people, it may be that they were born in a certain kind of relationship. For others, it was exposure to Hollywood from a young age, such as Disney. Then, the CW shows, in terms of how they characterize how relationships should be. A lot of the manipulation, a lot of the unhealthy, degrading sexism that happens in these shows that we internalize and don't even recognize we are putting ourselves susceptible to getting these kind of relationships, but we want it at that age because we think this is ideal, right? We think this is what it should be. And then growing up and recognizing that this is unhealthy. This is not the way I want to be treated. This is not the way I want to be spoken to. And sometimes it takes time to get out of a situation like that. Sometimes it takes, like Mary was saying, rebuilding of who am I, and having a singleness period where you really rediscover who you are, what you want, what you like, because a lot of us lose our voice in those kind of relationships where we become what we call relationship chameleons, right? We fit whatever our partner needs us to fit rather than being who we are and being accepted as who we are. And so then we transitioned to hearing about, Mary's healthy relationship. And one of the key things that stood out from what she said was having a foundation of friendship and also the patience of her husband. Mary, I do want you to talk a bit about how your communication is with him, because we spoke about the negative side in terms of having people relationships where people make you insecure, and you spoke about him not making you feel insecure, but talk to us a bit about the actual communication. What does that look like?
Well, beginning, I think, like I was saying, sometimes you could bring baggage into relationships, and I definitely did that. And I think he's the type of person that doesn't like us to go to bed angry. It could be a big thing, a small thing, a medium thing, whatever it is. We have to talk about it, unfortunately, until 6 a.m. until he hug me and kiss and we could be okay, because
right.
That's the type of person he is. And fortunately for me, he's that person, and I wasn't necessarily like that. He forces me to communicate, and that's a good thing, because I was always closed off. I think I spent years thinking it was okay to just bottle up your feelings and not talk about it and just be mad and hold grudges against people. But by openly talking about it, even if you're uncomfortable, it takes hours to get through, and sometimes you may not necessarily resolve something in an hour or overnight, but you get to a point where you see eye to eye and it isn't solved, but I still love you, we're gonna figure it out, there's gonna be some eventual solution to whatever the issue is. And that's the type of person he is. We've always been very open and honest, even if the other person would not have liked it. I think the honesty is definitely a big one for us. Just always saying how we feel. And not giving up. I think early on we both made each other's intentions very clear, so we never felt like we were wasting each other's time. I think we knew we were gonna be in it for the long haul, and just having clear intentions with someone in anything in life, just stating your intentions is very important. That could give someone a sense of security that you don't get in toxic relationships.
Right.
Letting them know, like, I see myself with you. I want to build with you. I want to grow with you. I want to get to know you. I want to get to figure out, what we could look like in 10 years together, right? We've been doing that. But yeah, the communication is definitely a big one. Being transparent. Meeting each other's family and friends. They say, show me your friends and I'll show you who you are. That's completely accurate. But like, I met all of his friends and they were all very like relationship centric people. They seemed to have like wives and girlfriends and kids, and they were happy. So he had very good examples of that too in his life. And I'm guessing, how he formed his perspective of relationships would have been from his family and his friends and things that he'd seen. I think he probably had a way more positive examples in his life. He was probably more ready.
One of the things that I think you made a point on was the awkward conversations.
Yeah.
We, especially in the Caribbean culture, have, whether verbally or not verbally, been taught to run away from those conversations. But those are the conversations that need to be had. Those are the conversations that are so important and vital to have healthy, honest, open relationships. And so even when it pains us, even when it's uncomfortable, it's awkward, you're nervous, even with all of that, we still have to sit through it.
Yeah.
And that's a very difficult skill to learn. It takes time, it takes patience. But if you're in a relationship where you want it to work, both of you have to commit to that we're not going to turn away from each other. We're going to turn towards each other. And we're going to sit with this until we get through it.
Yeah.
So I love the fact that you brought that up. That was beautiful. Thanks for sharing with us, a glimpse of what Mary and Justin's life looks like. As we wrap up, you did have the book.
Yeah.
Right? Insights from the Other Side of the Couch, my new book. And I really wanted you to share with us, a quote. Give us just one. I know I told you two. You're like, no. But give us at least one. I know, big people business and people have to run. We're already over time, but give us at least one and tell us what exactly it meant to you.
Look, let me just tell you, you see how many dog ears I have? Because it's so very hard to pick one, but let me see. This was something we talked about, and I'm gonna pick more than one. Too bad. Length of a relationship or friendship blind you to toxic tendencies. And again, this is something
we were just talking about time,
and it was very real. But there was another one that I really loved. It's better to lose friends than lose yourself.
What about that one? It's better to lose friends than to lose yourself. What about that quote stood out to you?
That sometimes losing doesn't always mean literal losing. Okay? Because
Elaborate.
you might think you're losing friends, you're losing people, but ultimately losing yourself is the worst and most devastating thing that you could do to you. And it's better to lose friends, it's better to lose boyfriends, it's better to lose anything that is toxic than to lose who you are as a person. Because again, you have to love you, care about you, be the best you for everybody at the end of the day, right? So you gotta lose it. If it's not good for you, please let it go. Let it go. Don't hold on to things that aren't making you happy, aren't making you healthy, aren't making you wanting to wake up in the morning every day and live your life. So I really loved that one.
You said you had another one that you wanted, or was it those two? You kind of made it sound like a lot. No, I don't want you to tell out the whole book, right? But I'll since the first one we kind of spoke on because it was time, let's pick another. Let's do one more.
Like one from Healing.
Okay.
Process is on page 49. The process of healing is like giving birth. It is messy and painful, but when you get past it, you would happily do it again for the result that it bears. Yeah. That's some deep stuff right there. You wrote that. It's giving healing. I know it's not in the relationship section, but it's very relevant and important when you're getting out of toxic and negative relationships, and again, getting to know yourself, making yourself a better person, working on yourself, self-growth. The healing process is no joke. It is not. You're going to have to confront your demons. You're going to have to deal with everything. But again, for that result that it bears, you'd want to do it over and over again, because the result at the end is what's important. A happy you, a healthy you, a person that can attract another good person and good relationships, whether that's, romantic or platonic, whatever it is. You need to do that work, put it in, put the time in, go see a counselor. Us West Indian people, we have thoughts and feelings about therapy that are unhealthy, but trust me, it helps. It helps. You got to deal with it. You got to talk about it. And it's messy, but it's necessary.
Say that again. It's messy, but it's necessary. That should have been a quote in the book. For those of you who are listening, I did promise that we would have a giveaway of one of the copies of the book. This really is open to people who are in the States, in Canada, or even in Trinidad and Tobago or in Grenada, because that's where we can get the books to you. So the giveaway is going to the first person. I'm not sure if you listened to our last podcast with Atia Douglas, but we had a good few gems that dropped in that podcast. One of the things that we discussed was the different trauma responses, right? And we spoke about the 4 different types of trauma responses. And one of them, I said, was not common to a lot of people, and that one was called the one to befriend a person. Some people call it to fawn. And the question is, and the first person that answers correctly will win the book, and then we will message you. I'll private message you to get your information. But what was the hormone that I said that causes people to engage in the befriend response? If you remember, if you know, type in the chat below. First person to get it correct will get a free copy of Insights from the Other Side of the Couch. My goodness, Mary, thank you so much. This has been so much fun. I really do appreciate everything that you've shared, your openness, willing to be vulnerable with us and tell us your experiences. It was amazing hearing your growth, because it definitely was that. And your story is a lot like many other people's stories, many young women. But there are also a lot of young men that also experience, these different ideas in terms of Hollywood and what they should be like in a relationship, and now they're not really sure where they stand. I'm seeing people guessing in the chat, but you're wrong. It's not endorphins. Don't worry, I'll still extend the giveaway to first person that comments on the chat, whether even after the live, that gets it right. But you have to listen to the first one. That's where you'll get the answer. And we'll organize after. But Mary, any last words for the people that you would like to share? Any closing thoughts that you want people to leave with from this conversation on relationships, healthy relationships? We kind of debunked finding the one, but anything you would like to share, or just let everybody know?
Just be kind and gentle with yourself. That's short and sweet and deep. Because if you're kind and if you're gentle with yourself, you will make better choices, okay? And you will get to a place where you can eventually, again, love yourself, attract more positive relationships than the ones that you're probably in now, whether that's romantic or friendships. But yeah, kind to yourself. The world is already so unkind to us, and there's all sorts of things to deal with. So just be kind to yourself, be gentle with yourself, and love yourself.
I think that was a great place to close off. Thank you so much, Mary. I appreciate you. I appreciate our friendship, and I appreciate everyone that turned out. I know some people couldn't have stayed through the whole thing. Some came late, but it doesn't matter. The fact that you showed up here today, it means so much, and I really appreciate all of you. Again, much love. Keep safe.
Yes.
And see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.